Keir Starmer's attempts to out Farage reform on migration will only end badly. We're going to read into this more from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with a headline that Keir Starmer's attempts to out Farage reform on migration will only end badly. The Prime Minister's utterable depressing decision to follow Nigel Farage into a gutter of inflammatory anti-migrant rhetoric is a terrible error, argues the former UK diplomat Alexandra Hall Hall. And I agree. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. I'm looking forward to reading this argument piece, and it's one that we need to remind ourselves of, that we are not following what is best for Britain. This Prime Minister and this government right now are currently not following what is best for Britain. They are pandering to Nigel Farage, and they're pandering to the rhetoric that he is saying. And the problem is that it's not just that Nigel Farage is a problem. The problem is the mainstream media are giving the likes of Nigel Farage and Reform a platform, and they're consistently allowing them to gloat on this issue. They are just as responsible for the situation that we are in, just as much as the government. Why? Because they do not prioritise the news that people need to know, only what they want people to know. There's a difference there. And this really infuriates me. What really infuriates me is how much media time they give to Nigel Farage. They give so much of it because he has a way with people, because he's popular on social media. They know that Nigel Farage brings viewers, brings ratings, brings attraction. He is in a weird sort of way. He is a celebrity, Nigel Farage, because he brings that wherever he goes, whatever podcast he goes on, whatever news media goes on, he brings that. But the problem is, he's not the Prime Minister. He's an MP, yes, but even before he was an MP, he was given more attention than MPs were. And he's always been somebody that talks, and has never walked the walk. And everybody says, well, give him the power and let him see what he can do. Well, it's now May 2025, okay? How long has Nigel Farage been an MP for? Less than a year? Well, we're talking about 8-9 months now or something like that. Like, what's he done for the people of Clacton as an MP? Yeah? And I don't want to hear, like, I've put this question so many times, and so many people who watch my videos can never come up with a straightforward answer of what Nigel Farage has done to the people of Clacton. I always keep putting that question out there, and I keep asking for Reform voters, because I know there's subscribers for Reform on my channel, and I keep asking them, tell me what Nigel Farage has actually done. I don't want to hear what he's saying he's going to do. I want to hear what he's actually done since he's become an MP. Because every single time I ask this question, not a single person can give me any reasons. And this is the problem. We're following what Nigel Farage and his rhetoric that he's saying. This is what Keir Starmer is doing, and all he's going to do is drive more voters away from Labour. Which is fine by me, from my perspective, because I want more voters to go to Green, because Green is a party of common sense. You can't trust the Lib Dems, because the Lib Dems got into bed with the Conservatives, and we already know about the Conservatives because of the last 14 years. So that's the situation that we are in. If you're in Scotland, your best success of pushing towards Scottish independence, if that is something you're behind, is to vote for the SNP, in my opinion. This is coming from an Englishman. In Wales, you should be voting for Plaid Cymru because they speak more to you in Wales rather than any other political party, in my view. As for Northern Ireland, I can't speak for Northern Ireland, but I can speak. But those are my views there. But he's absolutely right that Keir Starmer trying to out Farage on immigration and migration is not going to work, because those voters have already made their intention clear that they do not trust Labour, they do not trust the Conservatives, they're going to vote Reform. You're not going to win these voters back. Their position is, screw you, I'm still going to vote Reform because I don't trust the status quo. That's their belief. They don't trust the status quo. And to be honest, I don't blame them for feeling that. So what matters most to a politician is to win office or stay there, or what you actually do when you get there. I found myself asking that question as I was British Prime Minister Keir Starmer apparently abandoning his previous views on immigration in order to try and fend off the perceived political threat from Nigel Farage and Reform. The man who 5 years ago argued that poor housing, poor public service, and are not the fault of the migrants, their political failures, is now blaming migrants for pressure on housing and public services. The man who in June last year decried Reform Party campaigners for using racist language about migrants is now himself using blatantly divisive rhetoric to announce a new clampdown on immigration to the UK, or risking the country turning into an island of strangers. Now I'll respond to this quote of island of strangers here. Okay, this is the biggest load of BS that I've heard. This island of strangers. Okay. And I love driving this comment home because it upsets Reform voters here as well. Britain, England, United Kingdom, we are a multicultural country. Multiculturalism. We have many different cultures, many different backgrounds of different nationalities that have embedded into our society, and we have embraced their cultures and their ideas into ours as vice versa, back and forth. That's the reality. In some parts of the country, they've never had that. They've never experienced that. They've only ever been in, I don't know, majority white area or whatever. And they've never been outside of their box and seen the diversity that the UK has become. And that is something that they've grown up. And some people in the poorest of societies, in rural areas where they have never been given the income and the funding they need to actually build in those rural areas where they've never had the funding needed outside of London. A lot of areas, a lot of towns, a lot of seaside resorts and whatnot have never got the investment they need to actually upgrade, to move on with the modern times. A lot of them just been left to rot away, and they've never gotten that support. So for a long time, for a lot of them, when they see that prosperity is working in other parts of the UK but not where they are, they feel content of, especially when they're very close and very attached to where they live. They ask themselves, well, we've had the Conservatives in power for a long time. We've had Labour in power before, and now we've got Labour in power now. Like, what's the point of voting for them? Like, people have lost that formality. Like, they want to feel that things are going to get better. And one of the rhetorics that's constantly been told by them is that all their problems are from people coming across. There's people coming over to take your jobs, to take your lands, to take your people, all this rhetoric. It's nonsense. They're not taking everything. And this term, island of strangers, is so beneath a prime minister. Okay, this is like, I thought Boris Johnson and Liz Truss were terrible prime ministers, but I would never think that Keir Starmer would use this kind of language to try to stoop to the level, to try to appeal, to stoop to the level of Nigel Farage to try and win over voters. It's not going to work. It really is not. The man who, upon taking office last summer, promised to rebuild trust in British politics, now shows that he's not to be trusted either, as he willfully represents the previous Conservative government's policies on bringing immigration as being a one-nation experiment in open borders. There are many reasons to deplore Conservative Party's approach to immigration, including the botched Rwanda scheme and threats to withdraw the UK from the European Convention on Human Rights. But the one thing that cannot be accused of is operating a deliberate open border policy. The man who has repeatedly declared that growth is his number one priority has now announced a series of restricted immigration measures that will almost certainly harm Britain's economy by making it far less attractive and harder for talented students and skilled workers to study and live in the UK, and cutting off access to much needed overseas labour for critical sectors for the economy such as care homes. Some may claim that these policies are designed to support British workers by stopping so many jobs going to foreigners, and instead are training up British workers to do them at a higher salary. But in cases such as the social care sector, businesses simply may not be able to survive without the ready source of overseas labour. We will not have a social care system. So what will we do when we get old and grey and there's nobody to pick us up? Or they'll be used to force to raise their prices so high that the services become unaffordable for many users. Moreover, the logic is upside down, since the area where Starmer is proposing to restrict immigration the most is in the low-skilled sector, where he's proposing to keep open access to the UK for the higher-skilled immigrants. The consequences is British workers being encouraged to take on lower-paying jobs, while foreigners are still allowed to take to the highest-paying jobs. This also goes against the tradition of successful immigration in other countries, such as the US, where low-skilled immigration takes mental jobs. I think that's a misspell. which the locals do not want to do, and gradually work their way up to the middle class, integrating culturally in the process. Even as a naked political ploy to win votes on the right of the electorate, Starmer's strategy will fail. As the measure has announced today, do nothing to tackle the real source of public concern about immigration, which is the number of immigrants arriving by boats across the British Channel. It will do nothing to win over unbashing racist anti-migrant voters, who he will still prefer the real thing, not Farage light. His announcement has clearly drawn a storm of withering criticism from both the left and the right. As an example, the former journalist in Dunt posted on Blue Sky that Labour has chosen navalism over growth. And from the right, Adam Chapman at Community GB News said, someone I would not usually quote wrote, the government's white paper on immigration, which this charlatan has just announced, is farcical. First, it does not set a cap on how many get to come here. So what's the point? And that no cap means that Starmer gets off the hook when his plan doesn't work. And two, it completely ignores the issue that everybody is screaming at him to do something about, illegal migrants coming here in small boats. However, my main concern is about what Starmer's new immigration policy portray about his political priorities. These seem to have morphed into a noble pledge of public service to the country when he first became Prime Minister, to staying in office no matter what it takes. What sickens me the most about the Conservative Party in the last few years in office was not the embrace of Brexit per se, though I disagree on the personal level with the wisdom of that policy. It was the way it went about it, willfully misrepresenting the costs and trade-offs that the UK's departure from the EU, and falsely implying that we could have our cake and eat it. Serious dishonesty entered British politics and paved the way for other examples of unethical behaviour, such as granting COVID contracts to Conservative Party cronies, the Partygate scandal, and efforts to shield successive MPs from misconduct inquiries, like in the Watergate scandal, which eventually brought the Nixon administration down. It wasn't so much for the crimes as the cover-up which ultimately discredited the Conservatives in so many people's eyes. And likewise, one of the most nuanced aspects of politics in America today is a similar degrading of government, whereby previously normal Republican politicians twist themselves inside and out in order to justify Trumpian policies and actions which they would have been outraged about if committed by a Democrat president. Thus, law and order Republicans find ways to excuse Trump's pardoning of the January 6th insurrectionists. These attacks on the judiciary and a defiance of the court ruling. Thus, free trade supporting Republican-held Trump trade policies as reflecting his strategic brilliance. Being all about the promising fair trade helps bring manufacturing jobs to work in America, where the actual consequences has been to destroy America's reputation for sound economic management, disrupt businesses around the world, and hurt the poorest Americans the most. Thus, Republicans who once lambasted Bill Clinton for letting political donors stay in the White House Lincoln bedroom, and Hunter Biden for allegedly trading on his father's name to foreign corp businesses, apparently see nothing wrong in President Trump's crypto ventures, which offer blatant opportunities for overseas donors to buy his favour, or his plan to accept a luxury Bahrain plane from his Qatari royal family, not on behalf of the US but as a gift for his personal use while in office, and thereafter his presidential library. This is a naked violation of his emoluments clause in the US Constitution, which states, no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, accept any president, emolument, office, or title of any kind from which any king, prince, or foreign state. And in what is becoming a common Republican division, Speaker Mike Johnson wouldn't comment because he hadn't seen the details. As one American political analyst told me recently, for many Republican members of Congress, they identify as a politician that's become far more important to them than what they actually do when they get there. None of them wants to risk their jobs standing up to Trump, even when the transition notions they previously hold dear. Are we now witnessing the same process take hold in the British Labour Party? After all, this isn't the first time that Starmer has pandered to right-wing British voters. It's evidence in his overhyping in the recent UK-US trade deal, a historic achievement, when all it does in practice is limit the damage to Trump's tariff policies, and could easily be unravelled by a Trump change of heart. It's also evident in his desperate attempts to downplay the importance of security and smoother trade relations with the EU, all the steps which are required to achieve this, though the political gains from it vastly outweigh the relatively small benefits of the UK-US and recently concluded UK-India deals. The Labour Party's desire to hold on to power is also evident in its reluctance to embrace proportional representation, to allow a more accurate representation of political views in Parliament, because first past the post has traditionally favoured the two larger parties at the expense of the smaller parties. This calculus may change as the Reform Party threatens to cross the threshold necessary to win multiple parliamentary seats. But then this would also be a sign of political calculation taking precedent over principle. Starmer is not a fool. He knows he knows that we know this is a political game. The fact that he feels the need to play it is unutterably depressing. I need to push back against the senile notion that all politicians are the same. I don't doubt that Starmer has entered politics with good intentions, but like others before him, it seems that he too is unable to restrict the law of staying in power for power's sake. Alexandra Hall Hall is a British diplomat with more than 30 years of experience with postings in Bangkok, Washington, Delhi, Boyar and Tripoli. She resigned from the Foreign Office in December 2019 because she felt unable to represent the government's position on Brexit with integrity, and she is the co-host of the Disorder podcast. I should also point out this last bit at the end, that he doesn't really necessarily run everything. It is Morgan McSweeney is kind of hired the guy who basically pulls the strings behind Labour. Not so much, I would say, on it's all on Keir Starmer there, but that's a little tidbit that you don't really know that goes on behind closed doors so much. So, but I thought it was a very good argument piece, that is for sure. It's a lot to unpack, but let me just say that based on this, like, it's like the direction right now is we will head, if not at this general election, the next general election, we are heading for a reform government. It's going to be coming down. It's going to come because right now, as of right now, the Conservatives are in limbo. They have a leader who doesn't do her homework. You have the Lib Dems who are saying the same things over and over again. You have the Green Party that isn't really, while it is gaining traction, it's nowhere near punching above its weight, which I believe it's capable of doing. The SNP, who with its leader at the moment, is not exactly in the right place at the moment, so they need to bounce back from the general election as well. So the country right now it's not really, things are just not good right now. Things are really, really bad. And I always said that I would wait to see what this Labour government will do, but based on a lot of policies that a lot of the negative policies they say, I mean, the cutting from benefits from people with disability, I mean, like that's really cold. The keeping of the 2-child benefit cap as well. Out there, the winter fuel payments, like these policies are so nasty when the wealthiest in society could easily could make up for these shortcomings. It really is it really is very, very bad right now for Labour. But maybe some of you will think this is all part of the plan. What do you guys honestly think? What do you guys make of the argument piece by Alexandra there? What do you guys make on Keir Starmer's attempts to out Farage on immigration? Does he know what he's doing? Is it all Morgan McSweeney's play? Is Reform going to get the better of Labour in the future? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below. If you found this piece interesting, informative or helpful, please hit that like button. Share it across social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon content as well, which is exclusive to check out. And also, if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can click the join button down below to become a YouTube member for as little as 99p. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.